my worst job in food. I've had some bad ones, but I think probably my first one really was my first full-time job. Anyway, was washing dishes in a casino in Manchester doing night shifts, which was pretty horrific in terms of working night shifts. I did not enjoy that at all. But casinos are quite lively places late at night, after midnight, and sometimes the people would well enjoy themselves a little bit too much, and the casino toilets would take a bit of a hammering, and there was always a short straw drawing between the bar staff and the kitchen porters about who was going to clean that up, and often we tended to lose as we were back of house. So that was pretty bad, but gave me enormous respect for people who do that sort of work and do that sort of cleaning, because it's not something I could do, continue to do in my life. So I think that would probably be my worst job, but there's been some bad ones. It's difficult. For a chef, you tend to have loads because food is your thing, and there are various people who inspire you over the years. When I was a young chef, it was kind of a difficult job, a very poorly paid job. You smelt a lot, and you smelt of fish and sweat, and you finished late, and you worked horrible hours and horrible shifts for very little reward. So it was pretty unpleasant. And during that time, the one thing that pretty much every single chef didn't tend to read too many books, but the one book every single chef read was Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, and it just gave chefs an identity at the time, and it didn't make the job glamorous, because the job was never glamorous, but it gave people a sense of importance and a sense of identity, and so that was really important to me as a young chef, and to loads of chefs I work with. So that book especially kind of gave me an idea that there were different ways to communicate about food and different ways to communicate about cooking, which then went on to inspire my writing many years later. But from a culinary perspective, I would probably say, and this might surprise some people considering the sort of work that I do, but Heston Blumenthal is a hugely influential chef to me. Not necessarily because of his work creating these amazing sort of multiple Michelin star restaurants, but actually on a lot of the work he's done over the years on taking really simple food, really simple dishes, and making them as good as they can possibly be. So making the best possible burger, making the best possible roast potato, making the best possible chips. And that really inspires the sort of work that I do, because I believe you can have far more impact on the food system making food that people actually regularly eat and enjoy really, really good than in anything else you do in innovation. So yeah, those two are probably the two top of my list that inspire me. That's interesting. I can think of a couple, although it says best, but I can think of a couple I'd like to. One never made to market, but it's quite a good story. I worked in stocks and gravies quite a lot, in ambient food, which is unusual for a chef perhaps. And we were asked to come up with innovation ideas. I remember coming up with one for sort of a little gel pot of stock that you can add into sort of water or into a dish to make it as an alternative to a stock, kind of based on this idea that you get from chef created stocks that cook down and create a jelly, and we used to sort of chop them up and have them add them into sauces and dishes, and that was kind of the inspiration for it. People thought it was a really good idea, and then the company I worked for researched it to death with consumers, and did a huge amount of work to understand that consumers really didn't want that product, and it never launched. But what did launch was Knorr launched a stock pot about 2 months after we decided it was a bad idea, and now that's it added a huge amount to that stocks and gravies fixtures. There's hundreds of different variants under various different brands. So that was a frustrating innovation that never happened, and taught me that perhaps sometimes you can convince yourself something's a bad idea when perhaps it's not. I think in terms of health and sustainability, I've done a lot of work. It's not a product I've developed, but I've done a lot of work exploring its use in application. And that's a chickpea flour, wholesale chickpea flour called Pulse On, which is kind of very similar to a normal chickpea flour, but processed in a different way, which maintains the wholesale structure of chickpeas, which doesn't sound enormous, like an enormous culinary benefit. What it does is it allows you to use that chickpea flour in a whole variety of different applications, but it has pretty significant health benefits in terms of glycemic response and impact on the microbiome. And it enables you to have that impact in a load of really quite normal and accessible dishes. So that's a really exciting innovation that I'm working on right now, and I think that's going to really impact how we think about food and health in the market. It's probably quite a lot. I think the nutrient profiling model, I think, is our best way of defining how healthy a food is, and that gives us sort of HFSS classifications and that sort of thing. But I would like to see that model be more open to being refined and updated as new science evolves. Stuff about food structure or eating rate could easily be integrated into that. And so I'd like to see that model not be set as an absolute, this is where we are and it's never going to change. I'd like to see that more refined, more refining to that, and more updating to that, so we get a better understanding of what drives food and health. I'd also, I think it's important perhaps to make health claims on some foods, but I think there are too many loopholes in the health claims legislation, and I'd like to see more enforcement of that, because it's kind of essentially in a lot of the industry, it's just sort of, you can say what you want on pack and it's a Wild West and no one's enforcing any of that. So I don't like it when companies and brands make false claims about food which aren't really backed up by science, and I think there should be more enforcement and cracking down on that, and because I think that would lead us to healthier food overall. Hopefully it will never happen. People often ask me a lot, and people ask chefs a lot, I think, what their favourite food is and what their favourite meal is. And for me, what's really important about food is how it brings you together. So I guess the death row meal, in reality, it would probably be a roast dinner with my family, because that's kind of the eating occasion where I'm together with the family most of all, and it's also the sort of products and food cooked in a roast dinner is something I've done a huge amount of work on in my career. And traditional British cooking, I think, is where my large area of speciality is. So if the family would be a sort of big spread of roast dinner. If I was on my own, though, which I imagine you probably are when you have your death row meal, it'd probably just be roast potatoes and gravy, because they're the best bits of it. And so I just have a massive bowl of one, massive bowl of the other, and that would do me for my last meal.